Hi, I'm Stephanie Rublitz. Welcome to my channel. Hot on the heels of the So Ask Me Anything Scrap Busting edition, which if you didn't catch that last week, I will link my video in the playlist below. I wanted to talk about the scraps that are too scrappy to scrap bust. Like, what do we do with this stuff? We're gonna get into that today. Alright, so I had somebody ask me a little while ago about textile recycling in our community, so I did some searching around so that I could answer their question, and I found out that our municipality, at our municipal dumps, there are places where you can, like, just bins where you can put textiles in. And while I was searching, I came across a company called Alberta Textile Recycling, and so I thought, oh, okay, there's a thing here. And I kind of like put it in the back of my brain and thought, I'm going to revisit this because I really want to know what I can do with this stuff. And this is not just scraps, but it's like all my like cut threads and stuff like that. Like, what can I do with this other than throw it in the garbage? I wish I had better news. So I'm gonna tell you everything I found out. I did some phone calls, I did some reading. Now in North America, 85% of unwanted textiles wind up in the landfill. So in Canada, that means over 11 billion kilograms of textiles a year wind up in the landfill. It's gotten to the point where communities like Markham, Ontario and Colchester, Nova Scotia don't allow textiles in their landfills anymore. They've put like an absolute ban on them. And not only that, but now we have retailers like H&M, Reebok, who else do we have here? Levi's, Adidas, that are offering textile recycling at their retail locations. So what it seems like is that this is a problem that people are interested in solving. So when your textiles get donated, what happens to them? Well, there's three categories that they will get sorted into. Category A are your like basically pristine garments. Maybe they've been worn, but they don't look like they've been worn. They basically look new. Category B are the garments that they look like they've got a bit of wear to them. Maybe they've got a bit of a worn spot, maybe a hole or a little discoloration, maybe a small stain, some pop stitches, but basically they're still wearable garments. Category C, that's the stuff that's here. It's your scraps. It's your garments that are no longer wearable. It's all that kind of stuff. It's stuff that ideally is going to be reprocessed and made into new fabric. Okay, so what happens to all these categories? Category A goes right into secondhand shops. Often they're secondhand shops within North America. Category B, one of the things that can happen is they will get cut up and used as rags. And when you go to the hardware store and you see bags of rags, that's what those are. The other thing that happens with Category B is they will get sent to Africa, Central and South America, and they will get put in secondhand clothing stores there. Now, on the surface, that looks really great, doesn't it? Hey, there's people in need, there's people who need clothes. By donating our clothes, we're helping. It's a good thing. Not so much. What I found out is that often what gets shipped to developing nations worldwide is still not fit for anybody to wear, and it just gets burnt. So we waste all of this fuel getting it there just to have it burned anyways. But they don't all get burned. There's still a ton of influx of clothing. What's ended up happening in a lot of those places is their local textile creation economy has completely tanked. So whereas, great, people can go to the secondhand store and get clothes, a lot of people have lost really good jobs that just don't exist there anymore. Category C, there used to be a really great purpose for. They would get chopped up into even smaller bits than this, and they would get used to stuff car seats. They would get used to insulate speakers in cars. And if you've ever had to like get in there and like fix your car's speaker or like into a speaker cabinet, you might have seen that stuff and recognized, oh hey, that's just like scrap fabric, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, manufacturers have kind of moved away from that now. Also in the last few years, China has been accepting less and less recyclables because of contamination. They've really cracked down on the amount of contamination. And we've seen this in other recycling sectors too, right? They're not accepting as many plastics as they used to because of contamination. And fair enough, like you can't recycle something if it's dirty. So what does this mean for, you know, the H&M signs that say, have your jeans made into new jeans? Well, most of the time that's not happening. And a lot of the time they're just getting thrown out. I did see some mention of like places in the States that were actually like remaking textiles. But the problem is like fiber content is so mixed now that unless it is something like denim that is easy to sort 100% cotton denim from like a blended denim, it's really hard for factories to get those raw materials that they need, and it's not super cost effective. It actually costs less to make new textiles than it does to recycle old textiles, which means there's not a lot of incentive there for corporations to actually do this. But basically at this point, there's not really a market anymore for type C textiles. I think in Canada, there's like one power plant in Quebec that will burn old textiles and use them for electricity. But for me here in Calgary, there's no way for me to make sure that my scraps will make it to Quebec to be burned for electricity. If I put it in one of those bins for textile donation, they're just gonna get thrown in the garbage anyways. Now, I mean, if you're sewing with natural fibers and, you know, they're colored with organic colorants and whatever, then you can just throw them in your compost bin. But how many of us are able to even access those fibers regularly? They're incredibly expensive. And they're not always what you want for a particular project. So, what does this mean? I mean, obviously this is not the video that I had hoped to be making. I had hoped to find like this great way to recycle textiles, and I was hoping to give it to you as a fantastic resource, and it's not how it's turned out. So what can we do? Well, obviously we can change our relationship with fast fashion by not only sewing more, but when we do buy garments, making sure that we're buying good quality, something that's gonna last. Make sure that we're mending things so that they last longer. Making sure that when they're no longer mendable, what else can we do with them? Can we use them for rags? What else? Can we make them into a quilt? It means that when we are sewing, that we can look for zero waste patterns. It means that we can not buy that extra half a meter all the time for just in case. I'm terrible for that, honestly, because I'm 6'1" and there are no patterns made for my height. So I always have to lengthen my pattern. So I always get extra so that I know I'm gonna have enough fabric. But really, I could take some time, do the math, and really kind of like cut back on the amount of extra that I get. And at the end of the day, when you are left with this, because even in a zero waste garment, if you're gonna serge it, you're gonna have your offcuts from your serging, right? So when we do have these, well, what can we do with them? You can make stuffed animals, you can make pillows, and you can use this for stuffing. I'm going to experiment. I'm gonna keep saving my scraps and try and experiment with a way of making them into a quilting batting that is gonna be consistent and not have like thick points and thin points. I think it's gonna have to be a quilt as you go kind of situation, but it's gonna take me a while to save up enough so nobody will remember by the time I get there, but it'll happen probably in a year or two. And yeah, that's all I can tell you. I'm sorry. There wasn't a better, amazing solution. We need to buy less. We need to ask our governments to step in and help us change the textile industry. And let's remember too, I've only been talking about the textile industry from like when we purchase it on. It's before it even gets to the stores, it is one of the most wasteful, most ecologically unsound industries that we actually have. So in the end, I hope that this video has inspired you to maybe look at your relationship with your textiles, how you're purchasing them, how you're using them, how you're making them last. So there you have it. That's what I found out. That's the truth as I see it about textile recycling. So next week I will be back with some regular sewing content, and until then, you know what? Thank you for watching my TED Talk.